what happened? What was that?
My screen went blank.
Still digging around in my little world.
I was just thinking, I really like this music. It puts me in a happy place. And then it stopped.
I'm all out of kilter now.
We'll just leave that in.
It was better when I wasn't here. Oh yeah, we're recording. I'm not starting again.
Yeah, fair enough. Should we just sing it? Do 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 do.
This is Unpivot, the show for Excel and Power BI fans and anyone who likes chatting about data. I'm Wyn Hopkins.
I'm Mark Proctor.
I'm Stu Bays.
I'm Giles Male.
Oh.
Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome. Hey folks listening and watching, whatever platform. Thank you to the eagle-eyed viewer that pointed out that one of the episodes hadn't been loaded to Spotify. So people actually care. So thank you.
Which episode was it?
Either one that you or Giles edited. Because every time I tell you both, it's MP3, you always send me like an WAV file, an M4A file, or something like this. So I'd uploaded one, and Spotify only likes MP3s. So it might have been my fault, actually. I don't even know, but I like to pass the blame on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Wyn's fault for sure. Don't you, Giles?
Probably.
I agree. Yeah, sounds.
It was the ABBA episode, and I was here for that one, so it could have been me. So
let's go with that.
There we go. Yeah, let's go with that.
Notice I'm keeping very quiet because I've only edited one, so I think it's my turn this week.
Yeah, was it the ABBA one? I don't know. I immediately blamed the other guys, but and
that would be good, wouldn't it? Sue's only done one edit and she mucked it up.
There is method in my madness. Let's get her to do it again.
And John Akampora got well into the spirit of things, so thanks to him as well.
Yes, thank you, John. That was
awesome.
He was fun.
I mean, he counted his shirts in his closet. That is the furthest a guest has gone for the Unpivot show. So I think he deserves full recognition.
Mark. That is a benchmark. That's a benchmark. It's at the moment.
It is a benchmark. Let future guests be warned. If you come on the Unpivot show, who knows what we might make you do?
But we will see your wardrobe.
Well, and Chandeep videoed him doing his headstand. Did you see that? His hand.
Yeah.
Has he done that? I'll have to put that up on there.
Video up.
Oh,
it wasn't for us though. That was just him generally showing his progress. But I think it was. I mean, I don't know. I think he did like 3, 4, maybe 5 meters. I'm not sure the distance, but it was impressive.
Yeah. Talking of impressive.
Nice segue.
Go on, Sue. Talking of impressive.
So Sue is, for the podcast listeners, Sue is now holding up some very fetching looking. What are these sort of medals of sorts?
So this one's Napa Valley Marathon, which I did just over a week ago, a week Sunday, where I got 3:49:30. Which is a personal best and is also a Boston qualifying time. But Boston has a cut-off margin. Right. And according to my best friend ChatGPT, it's never been more than 6 or 7 minutes. And I did it I've got a cut-off time of 15.5 minutes.
So what does that mean, cut-off time of 15.5 minutes? You had that much to spare or something? Yeah,
basically to qualify, because I'm aiming for a time qualifying place, which means you guarantee a place. You have to hit a certain time. So for my age group, it was 4:05, and I got 3:49:30, so 15 minutes and 30 seconds. Wow. But what they will do is they'll take the top in that category. So like I didn't get into London this year because I've only just gone up an age group. I ran Florence in 3:52:53, but the qualifying time is 3:55, but I was 20 seconds outside, so I didn't get in.
So does that sort of, if you do get that time, you're guaranteed a spot?
Yes. Yeah, not for Boston. For Chicago, I am. So Chicago, I'm in Chicago because I'm at the time. But
people who run with like gorilla suits, they're just putting their name down on the lucky dip.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, they tend to do it for charity places. So they have to raise a certain amount of money to get a place to run.
So when is Boston? Are you going?
I hope so. I'll find out in October. I'm running Chicago. I've qualified for Chicago with a time qualifying place in October, but I can apply for Boston and London in October, and they're both next spring. But yeah, so
exciting. And the other medal? Got 2 medals around your neck. So.
This is just fun. This is the Grizzly. So it's anyone in my part of the world in the UK, or look up the Grizzly. It's a 20-mile cross-country track, trail, bogs, cliffs. It's just brilliant. They have drummers, on the beach drumming you down, and they have bagpipes up in the hills. And I got chatting to this chap about an hour in. We didn't stop talking for 3.5 hours. Because we started on a yoga, then started on running, and then it turns out he's a finance director and is really into Excel. So every time we passed a checkpoint, the people are looking at us going, "Are you two seriously chatting?" Because it's like up and down.
Once you get an Excel person started, they can't stop.
Can't stop. So once we got onto Excel, that was it. We were gone.
Did you tell him about the podcast? You tell him to listen in.
Yes, all listen. And in Napa, everyone I spoke to in Napa when I was running, they were data people too. So it's PJ, big high five to PJ. He was our vibe person, and he was into an Excel. He's an Excel geek, but during the week, and then during the weekends, he's like hype squad. And then I got speaking to someone else who uses pandas for financial analysis. No, actually didn't use pandas, he uses polars. So everyone I spoke to, and then I got talking to this other lady who was in the American Air Force, who uses Python for data analytics as well. So,
taking over the world.
Can I just ask a question, Sue? Because when I speak to people, I don't find many Excel or data people out in the real world. So, so do you start a conversation with, "Hello, I'm Sue. I love data." Do you?
I'm not a coder.
Or is it something like that? For you to then, and if they say no, you're like, "No, well, never mind," and then you just move on to the next person. How do you find that stuff out so quickly? There must be something that you do.
Well, you just start. I usually start chatting about whatever I'm doing. So if it's yoga or running, we start chatting about that, and then I just talk. And they're like, "What do you do?" "Oh, I do this."
I bet I know. Sue, she'll be doing yoga or running or whatever, and Sue goes, "I think I want to go and put this on my Power BI report when I get done. Hopefully, I've got a new." I'm like, do you use Power BI and then you're into it? You see, I bet that's your in, isn't it? That's what you do.
I was chatting to this chap. It was fascinating. He was a German, but had lived in the UK. And then I said, "Oh, what do you do? That was it." I said, "Well, how have you moved from Germany to the UK to?" And he said, "With his job." And I said, "Oh, what do you do?" And he writes algorithms for insurance companies. I said, "Oh," and that was it. Then I'm off.
Oh, you see, that's the difference, because I think most people would just go, "Cool, that's as much as I need to know about that. See you later."
Just slow my run down a bit.
I was like, "Oh, what do you use?" And he said, "Well, software." And I, "Yeah, but which one?" And then we were off into discussions about pandas and polar and all sorts.
Can I add news in the opposite direction again? I think while Sue continues to get fitter, I think I told the podcast 2 weeks ago I had my 40s health check and I was told I was overweight. I got a follow-up call about my cholesterol, and they're like, "Your bad cholesterol is dangerously off the charts and your good cholesterol doesn't exist. So you're like one step away from medication."
Oh,
she said,
no.
basically, you've got to change your diet. You've got to do more running. You've got to stop drinking alcohol, which I'm in Porto at the moment, by the way, on holiday. I did 4 days eating salads with chicken. And then I thought, no, I can't do this. So I'm back on the beer and the sausages, and I'm just going to accept. If my way out of this life is through high cholesterol, I'm happy with that. I'm just going to enjoy myself.
Start popping the statins.
Yeah, why not? You know, I can't. I ate leaves for 4 days, and I almost died of depression. So I'm not doing that.
Where's my running pal gone? If you come running with me, you can do both ish.
No, one goal this year. I'm going to get to the finals of the XL World Championship. I can't multitask. I'm going to be a fat XL nerd on the stage in Vegas. That's it.
Based on your cholesterol, it sounds like you might, even if you qualify, you might not make it.
So it's all or nothing this year. There you go. I didn't even know you had 2 types of cholesterol. I just thought it was like, oh, your cholesterol is good. But they're like, no, your bad cholesterol is really bad. I had a 7 point something, and it should be under 3 or something. Don't know what that means.
Yeah, it is quite bad.
And then the good stuff was under 1. Which
under 1?
Yeah.
What do you eat?
Anything. It's probably the problem. Whatever takes my fancy at the time. So there you go. So if I'm not around in future episodes, thanks for having me. It's been great.
We'll start long-term planning strategy session, everybody.
Say, win, Mark. Let's catch up.
And Mark, anything from you?
Well, after Sue completed her marathon time, she put something in that. She emailed us all to let us know how well she'd done, and the weather was turning nice. It was nicer outside, and I thought, you know what? If Sue can run a time that's, I mean, I don't know a lot about marathon running, but I know that anything under 4 hours is pretty good, right? For a non kind of professional athlete, that's a solid time. I thought, if Sue can run that, then the least I can do is run 5K. The weather's quite nice. So I've been out twice. That is
nice.
Yeah, I mean, I would be out now, but it is. But we are recording this. This is in my running slot, so I won't get today's out. But who knows? That is, the weather's turning. Things are becoming, nicer. I don't have to worry about getting cold. I can't run in the cold. I'm such a wimp.
Weather runner.
So that's. So yeah.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Great work.
I also sent Wyn a picture too from the airport.
Did you?
That was the picture of a glass of wine, wasn't it?
Oh,
yeah, I sent that. The picture from the bookstore, Wyn.
Oh yes.
Oh yes, you did send me a picture of Atomic Habits. Yes, which I embarrassingly still have not started, and we're into middle of March now.
The irony just gets stronger and stronger.
I thought at the airport, I went, "Oh, Wyn."
yeah, I've got to do something about that. Weirdly, our company's had issues this week with some company marking our website as malicious. We've had all sorts of issues with emails not getting through to people and stuff like this. I think we found it and removed it, but then it's like you can't even get in touch with these companies that blacklist you. So it's just a right pain. Yeah, we're getting around it. But that was the one thing. Power Toys. That's my news. Power Toys. I love Power Toys for ages. Only because it's a piece of software you can download from Microsoft for free. Power Toys. Put links in the show notes. Color Picker was the one I was using all the time, just to screen grab different colors from anywhere on your page, which is great for putting into whatever you need. It's now got ZoomIt built in as well, and I use ZoomIt all the time for presentations, so it saves downloading a separate app, so that's great. And then I used 3 things this week. So number 1, Advanced Paste, which when you paste, it allows you to convert things like M4A files into MP3 files, which was very handy, or images from JPEG to PNG and stuff like this, right? So that was awesome. Then a client had a whole folder of files that they wanted to consolidate with Power Query, and they all they're all named .xlsx, but when I opened them up, they're all single columns. with all comma separated values in single columns. So really they were CSV files that some system they were exporting it from had called, and there was like 1,500 of these. So PowerRename, go in the folder, rename all the files. Oh, I don't know, 12 seconds, job done.
That's great.
Brilliant.
So those sorts of things. And then there was one more, or Image Resizer was the other one I used a few times to get like little screenshots and stuff to be uploaded in a small format rather than large format.
Can I make a request? Because I tried to store it as because I saw your video, you know, that you were going to do a video, and I thought, brilliant, thank you. I love it. But I can never store it as a little click on my taskbar. I want it as a click on my taskbar, so you don't have to open it each time. Because I forget.
I'm going to have to find out about that.
Power Toys.
It is. I don't know if it always sits in my little taskbar system tray thing. But I don't know if there's a way to quick access. No, I don't know. Won't go into that now. But later. I'll find out. See if there's an auto.
But it's brilliant, isn't it? It's so underutilized and underknown. It's fabulous.
Sorry, Matt, Charles, go on.
I would suggest that I'd never even heard of it until one of you mentioned it really early on in the podcast. I now have it, but I've still never used it. So now I commit to using it because you've just named 3 very useful features.
Because there's also
2 goals for the year, Giles. You can use Power Toys and qualify for the Excel World Championship. And number 3, not die.
Don't die. Yeah, I feel like I should put that one first on my list. Don't die. Get to the finals. Use Power Tools.
Good call.
That's my year sorted.
And a listener reader sent in some news for us. Okay, this is Clive Petty. Thanks, Clive. There was a news article this week. Don't know if anybody saw it, about the New Zealand Health Fund or New Zealand Health. The organisation called, I'll get it right, Health New Zealand, where they were managing $28 billion worth of expenditure on one Excel spreadsheet. And the auditors from KPMG said there's a few issues here, lots of hard coding. And a whole bunch of other things. But the worst thing, I think this goes to Mark really, was that the KPMG report found that the monthly reporting took 12 to 15 days to consolidate and analyze.
Well, do you know what we could do? And I'd be very happy to do this because my friend's just done a tour of New Zealand and it looks absolutely amazing. I'd be quite happy to be flown out and to help them make it better. We could do that as a team, couldn't we? Team building.
For a mere 1% commission of the total value of the numbers managed on the spreadsheet, I would be in for that.
I'd be in for that.
Yeah, I don't fancy being sat there for 12 days trying to understand what they do and how they do it. That's the
1% of 27 billion. I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'm in.
You know, the value of it's the value of a spreadsheet or the value dealt with. Is it a material? Is it an important consideration? I'm going off topic here now. Is it a consideration? You know, is there a dollar value where you should be more concerned about getting like external review of your spreadsheet, regular update? You know, somebody to cast some sort of validation of that, some testing. When does it become sort of, or should Excel absolutely definitely not be used for a spreadsheet that can, is relevant for a business's operation, which is pretty much most spreadsheets, right? I reckon.
I would say that the value is almost irrelevant, because equally, I mean, you could have $28 billion, but you could have it could be one number, right? Budget $28 billion. Like, in which case you've only got one number in one cell, and that's it's not the number itself.
True. Good point.
I think it's the complexity and the volume of items. Because I'm guessing that 28 billion had quite a large number of row items in it, and therefore I think that then starts to cause issues. And also if you're just adding things up and it's just a list of things, then equally it's like the complexity's so low that even if there's quite a lot of rows, it's probably not a big issue. But once you start having to use various calculations and there's an increasing amount of data, I think there's a cut-off point there where it becomes a bigger issue. And even if you haven't got, let's say you've got a company where your turnover is only, I don't know, a million, say. If you've got a complex spreadsheet and that's critical to what you do, and it could cause a significant difference in your results, then I would say that in that scenario, even though it's only a million, as soon as you start getting to that level of complexity, that's the time to start thinking about review and other things rather than the value. Because if it has a massive impact on your organization, then it's worth thinking about whether a spreadsheet is the right thing. And you might decide that a spreadsheet is the right thing, and that's absolutely fine. But I think undertaking that review and deciding if it's the best tool is the thing to do.
I think that's the thing. And sorry, Giles. I was going to say, I think it's that thing of, and I'm going to hand this on to you because obviously, you know, mergers and acquisitions, financial models, forecasting, all that sort of stuff. There's big money at stake with models, and it's not that Excel's the wrong tool necessarily. It's that, or even a tool. It's just that it's maybe used in the wrong way or doesn't have the rigor and professionally built ones around it. And that might be the issue. So that was, sorry, I'm just jumping in with that thought.
Yeah, so I was just going to say it depends on the type of review as well, because you know it's one of the things we try and get people to do is internally review their own work, and you can use tools to do that. So doing any sort of review is better than no review. But if you think of like big bids for contracts or whatever, a big transaction model that could be in the billions of value to whoever, you know, the person, the company acquiring or selling, then actually spending tens of thousands on a proper model audit is probably always going to be worth the money. But that's a very formal type of model audit versus, you know, let's go through and just make sure we haven't done anything obviously stupid as a team.
Yeah.
In terms of value, I was just thinking about in terms of because Excel can handle 15 significant digits. So if you're using it for financials of any kind and you want some level of accuracy, you at least need 2 decimal places. Now, I'm not saying that you can report 2 decimal places, but you should at least record your transactions at the level that they're actually at. So you probably want 2 decimal places, which then brings you down to 13 significant digits. So in terms of the size of number, that's probably, once you get to 13 digits, I don't know what that is in terms of billions or trillions. It's definitely big. Once you get to that level, I'd say, or even close to that level, you need something else that's going to handle more digits, because you don't want your base numbers to start being rounded off, because even though you're probably not going to look at pence and pounds and all that stuff. You're not going to report at that level, but you at least want your data to be held at that level because that's what the transaction actually was.
You might be into the level of debt of the entire United States with 13 digits. I don't know what that is, but sounds about right.
I
wouldn't be surprised if it was on a spreadsheet.
It will be. I think that's the scary thing, isn't it? It will be on a spreadsheet somewhere. Everything's kept on a spreadsheet.
You know, there's a clock. I'm just trying to Google this. There's a US debt clock webpage, so you can literally watch it go up.
Oh, really?
US debt clock. Yeah. Just out of interest, type in US debt clock, and you can literally see the numbers ticking around like in real time, clicking up and up and up. It's bonkers.
On a similar note, and go back to what we were discussing before, if you ever Google death clock, it will also give you something where you type in like your age and your health, and it starts to count down how many days, hours, and minutes have you statistically got left. And at that point, you're like, man, I feel depressed.
Oh my, that's insane.
So everyone knows Matt Allington. So
yes.
Yes. Accelerator BI. So he did a waffle chart with average date, like little cells, and it was days I've lived so far. This is what got him to retire, right? He had days seriously. He had days, and he did a blog post on it. Days I've lived so far, days left to work, days I've got to live after I've finished work. And he just looked at it and it was color coded in, and he just went, "It's not many lines, is it? It's not many waffle points." He just went, "Right, I'm out." So yeah,
great decision.
Good for him.
Can't argue with that.
A bit of data viz can have.
He's fabulous, Matt. I did DAX courses with him during COVID, I think, and he was just brilliant. His way of explanation.
It's a very good
great
explainer
outlook,
of stuff.
That's why I'm in Porto drinking port, by the way. Tick off a few more of those waffle charts.
Excellent. Any other news from people? Anything else going on? No. Okay, so we'll get into question of the week. Let's go.
Oh my gosh, only half an hour.
It's the question of the week. It's the question. It's the question. It's the question of the week.
Excellent. And this one came in a few months back from Elliot Patterson. So thanks, Elliot.
Oh, Elliot, part of the UK team for the World Championship. Awesome.
Excellent. And so what data visualization choices do you make? And this can be Excel, Power BI, and all over the place. So I think I'm going to go with, let's go with Sue first, and then we'll go Giles and Mark.
Okay. So there's quite a lot of chatting about this recently, and I'm going to say what I think. So, in PowerPoint, you have transitions and animations, etc. And I've always told people, just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. And my view is like that with Power BI. It's an amazing visualization tool. Using Python and R, you can create amazing visualizations. But to me, it always has to come back to what is the question you're trying to answer and what is the action you're trying to drive. And so visualization should be simple. They should answer the question, and it should be quick and easy for you to be able to see what you need to see. And so with BI, things like taking away the axes, making a color stand out, the analogy, keep it simple, stupid. So you should be able to look at it and see it straight away, what it is you're trying to achieve. And find out who your users are, because I have some users that are particularly analytical and they like numbers. And then I have other users that are very word-based. And so I'll write explanations for them and watch them. So watch them use your report and see where they click and see what they do. And that then guides you to help. But my strength isn't in visualization. I can produce a pretty good report that people use and use frequently, but I'm not a visualization genius. I'm a data modeling, data engineering. That's my strength. But I just try and keep it as simple as possible. And I've got, over the years, I've got more and more simple in the reports that I design, because I can have lots of different reports for different things based on the same data model. But I'm trying to answer a question really quickly so that people can look at it and see it and they don't have to try and guess. So that would be, but it's really hard, because if you're trying to get a customer, the first thing they see this Power BI report that does this, and then go here and it'll do this and it'll do that, and it's all flashing, it's all, and that shows a certain level of skill. But as a data engineer, it's really difficult to say, well, look at my model. it's lovely. All my arrows go in one way and my numbers are correct. And I've gone into firms before and they say, look, and they'll show me, and then they'll go, but the numbers aren't right. Well, what's the point if the numbers aren't right? So, I prefer nice, simple, clean, effective visualization that have no noise. I've read Stephen Few show me the numbers, and I try to make it as peaceful and calm and easy for people to see and use. So that would be my take from a Power BI perspective. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Cool. Giles?
Yeah, I I've learned quite a lot about this over the last 5 years through other people. So even like 5 years ago when we started Full Stack, my old business partner, Kenny Whitelaw Jones, did a training module on visual things like visual hierarchy and introduced me to Gestalt's principles of visual perception. So that beyond the basics of like, okay, a bar chart's probably good for distinct categories and line charts are good for trends over time. I think what I've learned, and even more so recently with Ali Torban, who would be a great future guest, by the way, I would call a data viz expert. And when I've heard her run trading on data visualization, you realize that it's a whole world of expertise, a bit like we think of Excel and modeling. And it's way beyond just which graph do you pick. Like there's really, really detailed principles and lessons of how you do it well, which I wouldn't call myself an expert in at all. But she introduced me to things like dumbbell charts or barbell charts, I think they're called. And again, it's like, oh, if you're trying to compare two categories of things over time or not, something like a barbell chart's really good. She introduced me to some websites that I can probably find the links for, where you can check whether your color palettes are a good collection
for accessibility.
Yeah. So it's things like this that I find really fascinating. I'd never call myself an expert, but I do try and remember those principles and everything Sue just said. Minimize the kind of noise, keep lots of white space. The sizes of like headers versus subheaders versus normal text, and the positioning of it is incredibly important to make the viewer's brain have to do as little work as possible to kind of work their way through the story of a slide. So I know more than I did 5 years ago, and if I ever had to do training in data viz, I'd immediately be calling Ali to do it properly rather than me trying to blag it.
Yeah. Can I just say, but we had on my meetup group, we had, I can't remember his name, but he did a whole session for us on cognitive load and how to visualize things so your brain doesn't have to think too hard. And then we've got another session in a couple of weeks from Juliana on accessibility and designing for visualization. Cool. So I can give you the links to those.
Yeah, awesome. So for Giles and for Mark as well around the Excel side of things, we've also got just these, and you probably don't even, Giles, you won't even realize you're doing this, but you've probably got standards for how you build a financial model in terms of colors.
Like, broadly.
For me, my, your input cells are always, and that is visualization, right? You are triggering people. So, are there any other things for that? Have you got sort of standards in terms of, for me, my Power Query tables are always left green. So I know they're a Power Query table.
Yeah, there's a few things, like maybe like tab colors would be a particular set of colors for me, whether they're inputs, calculations, outputs, or controls. You mentioned it, cell colors for inputs, Power Query output tables, all the tabs with them would be a certain color. So there's definitely that. I guess what I normally think of by default when I think of data viz in Excel is you're probably creating a dashboard or a set of reports in either in worksheets in Excel or in charts that you would then, bring into PowerPoint or something else. But yeah, there is definitely a little bit of color usage in financial modeling best practice as well.
I would say that in the definition that I use of data visualization is that it's any value with context. So that means that, the example you gave there, Wyn, is that you've got a value inside a table and that table is green. So therefore, that's Power Query. You've therefore got a value that has got some context that helps you understand what that value is and where it's from. So that means that even things that are in a tabular layout, as long as you have context as to what that is, if you just have numbers in a grid, it means nothing. As soon as you put the word profit next to it and years across the top, suddenly it means something. You've got a value with some context. So I'd say that even tabular data is a visualization of some kind. So that's the definition that I use. So it's any value with context. Now, I think there is in terms of how we present visualizations, one of the critical things that I think really gets discussed is how that visualization is being used, because there's two distinct categories. One of them is effectively it's in a report. I've written a report. This visualization will be fixed. Is making a point. It's part of telling my story. It's backing up a point that I want to make. In which case, the choices you'll make around visualization are slightly different than if you're building an interactive dashboard. If you're building something in Power BI, you are thinking about, you're effectively creating, you need to create a story that doesn't exist yet. You need people to be able to look at your dashboard or your report, and you don't know what that story is because the data hasn't told you that story yet. So therefore, you need to create your visualization in a way that can bring out the points that need to be brought out so people can then investigate them. So I think there's an element of, there are reports which are things that are fixed. We are talking about this number and this thing, and therefore it's much easier to decide what thing you want to highlight, what your story is about, how you pick your titles to describe what's happening, because you know exactly what you want to tell. Now, so I'd say that they are kind of reports. On the other side, you've got more kind of self-service data analysis, which is what we kind of think about, you know, dashboards in Excel or Power BI. And the skills there are slightly different because you need to make sure that your visualizations that you choose are open enough that you're not pushing a story onto somebody which the data isn't there. If, you know, think about the number of times that somebody highlights the, you know, I want to highlight the highest number, you know, because that's a key point that needs to be brought out. But if that's not a key point that needs to be brought out, emphasizing that in some way is distracting somebody from what they should actually be looking at, which might be the fact that all the numbers are centered around a mean, for example. But so highlighting the highest actually distracts from the thing that they should actually notice from. So I think there's two distinct skills that are quite different. Designing something for a fixed audience and designing something for a flexible audience is quite a different technique. Now, the person that I often refer to is somebody called Stephanie Evergreen. Don't know if anyone's come across her. So she's a data visualization expert. I've been following her for about a decade in terms of charting and techniques. And she pops up on LinkedIn from time to time. She's written some books. And so she's got a website that goes through lots of examples, how you lay things out, how to get your tables in the right way, what things you should highlight, what things you shouldn't. So I followed her for a long time in terms of what you should put into your chart, how it should work, what things you need in there. And so I would generally tend to follow the things that I've learned from her and other people in that regard. And I think going back to, there's a book by Edward Tufte, I think, where he introduces this concept of the data ink ratio, which is kind of, if you've got a visualization, you want to reduce the junk down as much as possible. So therefore, the amount of ink that you use compared to the amount of data is that there's a higher level of data than there is to ink. But apparently, this is going back a couple of years, no one's sure. Well, apparently, I'm not even sure that was tested or validated in any way, because when they then went and did some tests on people who had, you know, these fancy charts that might be about, here's something about trees in North America. So therefore, they've got everything that's kind of at the height of a tree to indicate various things. That actually audiences pretended to retain that information better than just a really stripped back bar chart. So I think there's an element of, you need to make sure you focus on the message, but you need to communicate in a way that brings that out from people. And the piece around Edward Tufte and the whole data to ink ratio is always something that I would say, let's strip back all the noise. And I think it's a case of strip back the noise that detracts people, and then potentially add some noise that helps people understand and retain that knowledge. So it helps them to understand what that story is and what it really means. But so they're the key things that I would think about in terms of visualization. And often, if you think about an Excel, or even if you've got a report, so if you're building a report, it's got a story that you want to tell. You know, when it says chart 1, sales 2024, that title is a key element that you could utilize that title to be like, to say the point that you want to make. Sales of our Delta product were up 35% year on year. But if you're building something that's flexible, even in Power BI, when you can get those kind of flexible sentences, how do you know that sentence is actually pulling out the key point and the thing you want to make? So often you need quite a bland heading that then people can then think about what that data actually means, and then they can go and investigate. So I think there's reports and there's data analysis tools, and both of those have visualization, and we think about them in different ways.
And that sort of I got data ink ratio on my notes here, Mark, so we're on the same level. I got Gestalt principles, Carlos, on there. We've got know your audience, Sue, so we're all on the same page here. So that sort of that data to ink ratio type thing as well, the sort of, you know, getting rid of the clutter off visuals is just a simple one. So, you know, I always add, you know, values to my column charts, and then get rid of the axis because it's not helpful then, because you're just forcing people to read and get rid of clutter. And, you know, if the axis of your chart, like in Power BI, it defaults to the word month shows for your months, do you really need that? Clean stuff up, less things for people to read, and they just understand what's going on. The Gestalt principle one is interesting. I've been to a few demos about things like that as well. So that's that. You know, I had to look up some of these definitions as well because I can never remember them. But that sort of, you know, proximity of visuals to each other means they're psychologically, you just relate them in seconds looking at them. So white space is a good thing. Using simple lines between things to help people where to focus. So that sort of common region, either a box around something or a little line to help you go, I'll read across the top first and then I read underneath. And without that, people's eyes just go up, down, left, right. And going back to sort of Sue's comment about sort of how do people use your report? I think that's gold, because
definitely.
Only when you see someone, you know, scrabbling around and not knowing where to look. And I think the biggest mistake I see new people making reports and things is they've spent a week building this report one visual at a time. So in their brain, it just all makes sense. And then they show it to somebody in one big hit, and people just go, whoa, what the hell? Yeah,
it's too much. Too much. Yeah.
So really less is that simplicity thing.
Yeah.
And just lead them through a few pages is
And you know, don't wait a week. Whenever I'm working with customers, I'm back and forth the whole time. Look at this. What do you think of that? And does this work? Because it's you get their feedback. They know their data. They might not know Power BI as well, but they know their data and they know what it's showing. And by watching them, you see what they're interested in, and then you can sort of help form the visualization process. The guy that did the psychology, John Lunn, I've just looked it up, and I'll give you a post. He did a session at SQL Bits, and I just loved it because it was about, you know, how your brain works processing visualization, and you know, if you you know, and it's the way that you can really make it simple so that your brain doesn't have to think. It just looks at it and it knows. It doesn't have to work. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to actually make it really easy for your brain to take in the data. And it's things like putting your bar chart in an order so that you don't have to then process, you know, this is high, this is low, this is high, this is, you know, and you help it draw things out. But I can give you some, if you're interested in Power BI, SQL BI did a free reporting course, which goes through which visuals to use for one type of things. And I remember doing it years ago, and just laughing at them, you know, the way they, you know, this is ugly, you know, in the whole Italian way, and you know, this is nice, this works well. You don't, you know, so it's
we haven't mentioned pie charts once.
Yeah, let's chuck a bit of pie chart in there just to spice
it up. How strongly do we all hate pie charts?
But they're okay too, and some businesses really like them. If it's a two thing, and you know, and it's got a label on it, and your business user wants it, you can, you know,
awful. The devil's
I'm not going to lose any sleep about it.
But not 3D pies.
No. He said, why would you do that? Why? But again, it's because you can.
Mark's keen to jump in.
Well, I would say in terms of pie charts, right? If you've got because I mean, I think most people, as soon they're happy to use pie charts, and as soon as they read an article online about how bad pie charts are, they then be like, "Oh, I need to be on board with this, and I need to criticize everyone who uses pie charts."
Love it. I mean,
just because it makes them feel superior to start with because they've read something online about why pie charts are bad. But there are circumstances where, I mean, let's say you've got a US election, you've got two parties, and you want to know what the percentage vote was for each party. Now, you could put that in a bar and you could separate that up, but your brain would be like, I don't know what's 48% and what's 52%. So really, I'm just going to look at the numbers. So in that regard, you can say, oh, I've got a bar and I've split it up and I can split it up in various ways. But actually, you look at a pie chart and that slight 1% either way, your brain goes, yeah, I know who's winning. So in various ways.
Totally disagree. It's rubbish. It's harder to look at in a pie chart. Use a bar chart.
Not for two, I would say. For two,
Kurt Buehler did a good blog post a couple of weeks ago, actually, about pie charts and the sort of the demonization of them, and also just not necessarily supporting them but just giving an overview of it. It's quite a nice balanced piece about them. But yeah, two colors I'm okay with. Avoid the 3D pie. Yeah. Oh, but again, what's the purpose? Okay, because Microsoft, every Power BI advert has somebody on a computer building a pie chart. Right? I know. Every single marketing bit, because pie charts are colourful and eye-catching. And if that's the purpose of your report, then it's a good thing. But if you want to communicate data very quickly with multiple segments, then a pie chart probably isn't the right choice. But it's not necessarily the wrong choice every time.
We have a lesson in our induction course. I'm just reading it out now. The title is literally "Pie Charts are the Devil, Donut Charts are not much better."
No, but I mean they do take up a lot of space on the screen. Yeah. That's my only thing. But I think if it's two, it's acceptable. Especially if you click on it and then it'll filter everything for that as a nice slicer.
We did a good thing a few years ago in our office where we got our graphic designer, the person who designed our logo and our website and stuff like that. We got them to come in and just give us an hour on design principles. And there's a couple of ones. One was sort of like 3 colors on a page is what you're looking for. So if you ever look at something that looks really polished and sweet as a report that goes, oh, that looks really good, you'll probably notice it's only got 3 colors on it and maybe some highlights, maybe black as well. And it just doesn't overwhelm you. And this is where, like Sue, you mentioned it earlier, like cognitive load and stuff. These are all these terms that I never heard of before Power BI days. Just like, it's a bit overwhelming. Like stat column charts, really common. Right, everywhere I go, clients got stat column charts with 17 colors in and then a legend that you've got to try and work out what the color is. But now you've got tools in Power BI like small multiples. So you can have one color, but the chart gets broken into 17 parts, which is much easier and less overwhelming. So there's that sort of thing. Another one was the squint test, which is a great tip. So once you've done your report, just squint your eyes at it. And then whatever stands out the most, that should be the most important thing on your page. And if it's not, then it needs to be shrunk down, toned lighter. Sometimes you've just gone too bold a color. So you just need to tone it down a couple of notches. And there was another one, but I've forgotten what it was now. Squint test.
There's one useful one with colors that I use a lot, and I've seen a lot of other people use, which is just linking maybe a keyword, whether it's a positive or negative word in the text, to a color on the chart.
Yes.
So it's really nice to link, like whether it's like the name of a category or a client or whatever it is, keeping it like maybe you've just got red, amber, green within your text and your chart. I love that because it's so simple then.
Be consistent. So
yes,
if you've got your actuals and they're in black, then use actuals for black everywhere.
Yeah.
And if you've got, your budget is or something like, let's say your dollar spend is one color, and then your head count is another color.
Keep it the same. Keep the same. Format the same as you go from one report to one page to another. Try and keep them the same so that people are looking in the same place for your slicer or the same place for this or this. Take away that load. definitely. And, same thing, positioning, current year, previous year. If you have previous year after or before, have it the whole way through so that your brain doesn't, I've seen that before where they, but I'm looking at the back for previous, but it's in the front here. So don't make my brain think like that. Just, so try and keep it as simple as possible. Things like that. So you're actually, the number should jump out at you, what you're looking at, the message, what you're trying to achieve should jump out rather than, and context, like you said, Mark, context is critical. What Top is this left. Number? Yeah.
Context.
Yeah. What is it?
Have any of you used I just had to Google this, a Sankey chart? Have you seen
I
those?
actually used one today.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, first time for ages.
I've really struggled with these. Do you find them useful?
No, not really.
I was trying to be polite because I just went really full on with pie charts. I didn't want to just be like the devil.
No, it's you got to have the right data for it. I'm happen to be doing stuff with survey data, which I don't ever, questionnaire type stuff, which is very rare for me, and it just sort of fits into that visualization. And again, it's sort of the audience in mind. It's that piece for it. But yeah, it's
they feel very noisy, very noisy.
Yeah. You've got to have the right sort of data. Lots of visuals. You just go up. It would be good if I had 3 things, but this visual, I want to use it, but I shouldn't, because I should do 3 separate charts. Sometimes that's the right idea, rather than just trying to cram all those line charts where there's 17 lines in them and stuff like this.
Yeah.
One of the techniques I've found for line charts as well that works quite well is, let's say you've got 4 or 5 lines, 1 per year. Okay? And you've got a month across the axis. You've got comparison year on year. So like going a bright color for current year.
Yeah.
And then a thick dark line for prior year.
Yeah.
A dotted gray line for the year before that. A thinner line for the year before. So the sort of, you can assign some logic to the darkness and weight of the lines as well. And you just intuitively know what it's doing without having to look up and down an axis.
But it makes sense because you're interested in the current year first, aren't you? And then compare it to the prior year. Yeah. Sorry, Mark.
Can I jump in with a few things? So I have got on my website, I have got a tutorial about how to create Sankey diagrams in Excel. It is one of the most confusing mathematical things I've ever done. I do not provide any guidance on how somebody could replicate it. Just, this is how I built mine. These are the calculations. This is how it works. Because it's an absolute nightmare, and it's not even one chart. There's somebody, was it Roberto Messa, I think, who's an Italian Excel MVP. Apologies if I've got your name wrong there. So he creates lots of charts, and they're all effectively just dots. So they're all just what they call the XY scatter plots and lines. And he creates loads of these different visualizations that are just beyond Excel's capabilities. But it's just about combining small dots like you would as if you were a printer and you just want 37 dots that then look in a certain way. So he's created a different kind of Sankey diagram using those methods. So there are things that you can do. But with my solution, it was actually to make it, I think, reasonably flexible. It's actually like 100 charts all stacked on top of each other with different sections that when you select them, different things highlight. So Sankey diagrams are an absolute pain in Excel. I think they come from the energy world where you're trying to say, here's all the energy that's coming in. Where does all that energy go to? So I think they have a very specific purpose. But I would say, in terms of Wyn's example there of using line charts and various things, one of the most useful things is, rather than using a line chart, if you can use effectively a scatter chart, and in your data, so you have 1 to 12, and then the next year 1 to 12, and then the next year 1 to 12 in terms of months. If you use in Excel the NA means it's not rendered on a chart. So in effect, you can have all of this in a single table, and you end up with an NA line in between each year, which means that you get the first year, the second year, the third year, you get all these years, and they can all be treated as a single series. So that means that any chart, you can get all of your historical data as a single series, and then you can get the series that you want to highlight. So that means you can have 2 date series, or 2 series, or 3 series, or 4 series, or however many different highlights you want. And then all your previous series are then just gray, and you can then see various other trends. But it means that, because otherwise, if you've got all these different lines, when you get your new year for 2025, you've then got to add a new series on, so it's not particularly dynamic. But by using this scatter plot technique and this NA value, it means that your series can be dynamic, and that's a good way of kind of making your charts more flexible. It's a method that I don't know whether I picked up from Carlos Barboza or whether I picked it up from John Peltier and then Carlos used it a lot. I'm not sure which, but either way, Carlos is definitely a hero in terms of that method of creating visualizations using scatter plots.
On a tangent, I was with Carlos last night in Porto having a beer. I'll see him again on Saturday. So I'll tell him that. I'll tell him he's mentioned on the podcast.
Get him to send us a link if he's got a video on it, unless Mark's got a video on something.
If you go, he did a session at the London Excel meetup group, probably 2 years ago, maybe, I don't know. Okay. If you search for that, he did a session on it about how he structures the data and then how he builds up what he calls his backbone formula, so that you've got your data there and then it inserts the NA into each place. So there's the London Excel meetup group, Carlos Barboza. There is an example there where he works through that as a solution.
Sue's waving.
I'm waving very excitedly. But don't forget, you've got Python in Excel now.
Oh, God.
With Python comes amazing visualization libraries. So you've got matplotlib and you've got Seaborn. And I've just Googled it. And there's you can create a pair plot with Seaborn where you have exactly that small little. So what you've got, I'll send you the link. But basically, you've got a plot of, the scatter graph and a bar chart next to it. And it just makes visualization. Seaborn is just lovely as a visualization tool. So you have Excel with Python now. So any visualization you want to do in Excel, you've just been given superpowers.
Every time somebody shows me an example of Python data viz, though, they keep using really bad examples where it's like 9 little plots in one, and it always looks less helpful than more helpful to me. I'm sure they're very good.
Yeah, they are.
It's that thing about you said at the start, Sue, about the audience as well. It's just don't show a complicated chart to somebody who's not used to seeing. They're not going to sit down and explain. Yeah. Like, I still struggle with box and whisker charts and stuff like this. I had to build one in the past, and I still don't really know what it was doing. Yeah. And things like this, it's just like, I just have to really think about what it's telling me, and that's just not the ideal dashboard report in most.
No, cases. It's a bar chart, really, isn't it? Bar chart, column chart.
It looks awful. Yeah. What's that?
Yeah, it sort of like shows the range of sort of distribution of results as well as the average point.
So it shows you the outliers. So it'll show you the main outliers, and then in the box is, I think it's your 25th and 75th centile, and then in the middle is your average.
I feel like I could just pivot away from cheat sheets for a month and just talk about pie charts and box of whisker charts. Might do that.
We're running
grumpy old man.
In the interest of time, we're running towards the end of time. I want to recommend some stuff, and get you guys to recommend. You've already recommended some people, so I want to get in there as well. So one of the books, Storytelling with Data.
Yes,
it was a good book. DataViz, for DataViz challenges, there's a whole site called Workout Wednesdays.
Yes.
Amazing people build amazing visuals and stuff. So you find Megan Longoria, Kerry Colosco, Shannon Lindsay, all those folks. So they're doing awesome stuff, and you can they give you, here's the data, build stuff that's awesome. There's currently a Power BI DataViz World Champs on. Go check out Injay Park's submission.
Definitely. Mind blowing.
Insane. Just looks, it's nothing, it just looks so polished. and just insane
Gusto
mode.
as well. Gusto.
Simple, right? That's the beauty of it. It's simple, clean, sharp, and looks like it's been built in something that isn't Power BI. Just amazing. The amount of effort that has to go into it, though, is then the trade-off. How much time is your boss willing to give you to build a report that looks $1 billion versus just getting in the answers that they need, and then they're going to not use that report next month? There's a trade-off, right?
It's true, isn't it?
What's the audience? What's the purpose? How long lived is it going to be versus how long you're going to spend making it pretty? So anyway, those are my little recommendations. Anybody else for where to start, where to look?
Definitely Workout Wednesday. I did them a few years ago and dip in every now and then, but they're just brilliant because you don't have to worry about the data set. And so you pick up really useful techniques.
I can add some. I said Stephanie Evergreen, she's got a couple of books out, both very good. Both she's got 2 books out. One that they're very accessible in terms of you don't need to be an Excel wizard to work through them, but she goes through the principles, the science, why you should use this and why you shouldn't use that, and then references studies and various other things. So I'd recommend that. In terms of actually creating charts, then John Peltier's website is fantastic. So much stuff on there. Advanced things in terms of VBA. Robert Mundigal, who runs, I think it's Clearly and Simply or Clear and Simple or something like that. Robert Mundigal, he's got some amazing stuff on there about how you visualize various things. We've mentioned Carlos Barboza. So they're all people in terms of charts and visualizations. They're good. There's a person on LinkedIn. Apologies if again if I get a name wrong. I think it's Fraser Alexander, who does dashboards in Excel that look like they weren't created in Excel. They are in terms of ideas. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that they're the best solution in terms of visualization, but in terms of ideas, think what can we achieve in Excel versus Power BI? I don't know what his underlying data is, but have a look at those in terms of the color schemes he's used, the way the stories he tells and things like that. So that's someone else who's worth looking at. But yes, overall, Stephanie Evergreen is the person you want to follow.
Minda Tracy as well.
Hub.
She's got some great looking Excel dashboards and things, and some quite some really in-depth videos about how to build some pretty whizzy looking different techniques and stuff like that.
I would add again, I mentioned Ali Torbin. I just had to remind myself, but she's got a podcast on data viz called Data Viz Today, Data Viz with a Z. So if you want a podcast about data viz, that would be a good one. Ali's brilliant at anything to do with data visualization.
Yeah. So again, like with Wyn, Workout Wednesdays, Lindsay Cole, but also Stephen Few is great. Show me the numbers. So he's really good. But we had some excellent speakers on visualization. So on accessibility. Don't forget the accessibility to make it easy for people who have various
color blindness,
color blindness,
all sorts of things, icons that different rather than just different color icons, use different shapes as well, and those sorts of things just really help stuff stand.
We got Juliana Smith in a couple of weeks, who's going to be taking us through that. That's her big thing, but I can give you those links.
Yeah, excellent, brilliant.
I would say there's lots of resources out there, and people just need to think about or just go and look for them and learn what principles work and just read from people. It's all out there. It's all available. Yeah. So there's nothing to stop us creating visualizations that are exactly what we need for those scenarios.
Don't make Giles any more grumpier.
Do you reckon I'm more grumpy now than I was last year? Am I?
And do you know what it is? It's because you're not running. No, you're not running. You're feeling old because you're not running.
Yeah, but to be honest, Giles, 2024 was a bit of a banger of a year, wasn't it? So, you're on the come down now. You're having a bit of, so you can just start to build yourself up again towards the end of this year. You can't keep that pace up.
I just go back to, honestly, 5 years ago, Miles said to me, because he's like 5-6 years older than me, he was like, mate, you enjoy your 30s, because when you hit, like the moment you hit 40, it's over. and your metabolism's going to go through the floor. You'll get fat. You'll be even uglier than you were in your 30s. And he's right. I will try to be less grumpy. I'll try to be less grumpy.
Yeah, but it's the matter of I'm over 50 and I'm loving life, so it's a matter.
But you're a weirdo. You're non-coder 15 marathons in an 18-month Sue. You're an anomaly.
Outlier.
I need to come and hang out with you.
I'm not an anomaly. I'm not.
You are. We need to go on holiday, Sue.
Right on the visualization. There's Sue.
Right.
Yeah, with a big arrow. There's Sue. Top right.
I think it all went downhill after the Christmas quiz where everybody said that I was the least competent. That's not what they said. They just picked everyone else as more competent. And I think I'm just not over it. So I'll work on that slowly.
Hence that now leads you into this challenge to win the Excel World Championships, to prove all those names.
Yes.
It all comes together, Giles.
Yeah, that's going well.
This is he that skips around the place with his white fur coat.
I think that may be the bigger issue.
All right. Enjoy Porto, Giles.
Thank you. I will.
I'll go for another run. Sue.
Yes.
Catch you later on.
See you later. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.